Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on CRISPR-Cas, market outlook, and industry developments. We are excited to have you with us as we explore one of the most dynamic and rapidly evolving areas in biotechnology. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Ravikiran Bodlapati, who brings deep expertise in market intelligence and healthcare strategy, and he'll be guiding us through today's presentation. Over to you, Ravi, sir.
Thank you, Falguni, for the introduction, and good evening all, and also good morning to any attendees from US or Europe region. So I'll be detailing the CRISPR market and trends in the CRISPR-Cas industry. I'll be more focusing on market developments and company initiatives rather than deep diving into technology aspects of the CRISPR-Cas mechanism. Of course, I'll give a very high level overview of the CRISPR-Cas mechanism for any newbies to understand the technology. But the intention of this seminar is to present more on trends in CRISPR-Cas industry, what companies have been doing, and what are the key market drivers, restraints, and any information on the pipeline molecules related to CRISPR-Cas. Can you please go ahead? Yes. So, what is CRISPR-Cas technology? So, this is an adaptive immune mechanism of bacteria or archaea, mainly prokaryotes, to defend any foreign viruses or phage particles. Our researchers identified that bacteria or archaea has this CRISPR-Cas defense mechanism, which is used to defend phage or other infections. For example, any virus or phage, bacteriophage particle infects bacteria, then the bacteria has the CRISPR gene elements. So CRISPR is termed clustered regularly interspace short palindromic repeats. So these are genomic sequences having clustered palindromic repeats and some spacer sequences in between those clustered palindromic repeats. So these spacer sequences will imbibe any foreign phage DNA, and then it acts as a memory or adaptive immune memory. And when the bacteria is reinfested or reinfected with the same virion particle, then the bacteria will activate this CRISPR-Cas immune mechanism, and it will cleave or it will degrade the foreign DNA so that the foreign DNA is no longer active to infect the bacteria. So, in a broad term, this is a kind of immune mechanism present in bacteria and prokaryotes, and the researchers have did significant breakthroughs, and they have re-engineered this CRISPR-Cas mechanism to use as a gene editing tool for the human therapeutics or diagnostics or other applications. So this is actually a native adaptive system of bacteria, which scientists have re-engineered to use as a gene editing mechanism. Move on to next slide, please. Yes, so as I mentioned so I'll give a very high level explanation of the mechanism. In bacterial system, there are three important components. One is Cas9, it is an enzyme. So think of it as a molecular scissors which can cleave any foreign DNA. So Cas9 is a nuclease enzyme acting as molecular scissors, and along with Cas9 there will be some other elements called CRRNA or track CRRNA within the bacteria, which help to identify any foreign DNA, and then when it identifies the foreign DNA and binds to the foreign DNA, the Cas9, which is a nuclease, which is a molecular scissor, will cleave that foreign DNA. So that is a broad overview of mechanism. But when it is re-engineered and being applied to human therapeutics, here the key component is one guide RNA. So guide RNA is nothing but an RNA which guides Cas9 to a specific site to degrade the genome. You can think of it as a molecular GPS. So guide RNA could be a molecular GPS kind of thing, and guide RNA is a synthetic RNA which can be synthesized in the lab based on the specific target sequence that we need to target and clean. And guide RNA along with Cas9 enzyme or Cas9 protein will form a complex, a ribonucleoprotein complex, and it will bind to target DNA at a place called PAM, protospacer adjacent motif. So, uh, in the upstream of 3 to 4 bases, typically when in a genome, when there is MGG sequence, generally that is called a PAM motif sequence, and there this CRISPR-Cas9 complex binds to those at that specific sequence, and then it helps cleave the DNA. And this CRISPR-Cas9 complex help in inducing double-stranded DNA break, approximately 3 to 4 nucleotides upstream of PAM site. And when the DNA is cleaved, cell will automatically have a repair mechanism to repair the cleaved DNA, and the repair will be done through 2 modes. One is non-homologous end joining, and second homology directed repair. Non-homologous end joining, there will be a gene disruption because it will not join uh, correctly, and there are errors, and it will lead to some insertions or deletions, and finally some mutations. Whereas homology directed repair, a target gene sequence can be inserted during the repair so that the genome will have the new target gene sequence of our interest. So basically, within a cell, within a nucleus, we have genome, and within the genome, at a specific point in the genome, uh, we are the CRISPR-Cas9 will bind to that specific point, cleave the DNA, and either it can insert mutations, so there will be a gene loss of function of the gene, or if we insert a target DNA, then the target DNA is inserted at that specific location of the genome. So CRISPR-Cas will act as a scissors. It will cut the DNA, and at the site where it cuts the DNA, it will introduce a new gene of interest. Looks simple, but a very complex mechanism. This is done within cell, within nucleus, in the genome, at specific locus of the genome, at a specific palindromic sequence. The DNA is cut and then rejoined with a new target gene or target gene sequence to get a new function, gain of function or loss of function of the gene. So this is broadly a mechanism of CRISPR-Cas9, and researchers have been developing different variants of Cas9. Cas9 is a nucleus, acts as a molecular scissors. It will cut double-stranded DNA. There are improvisions in Cas9. There are Cas12, Cas13. Some will cut RNA, some will cut single-stranded DNA, some will only help in infusing one base, one base pair editing or one base pair change. So there are several versions of Cas9 which researchers have developed and are being used in different types of gene editing tools. So finally, CRISPR-Cas9 is a third generation gene editing tool, an advanced gene editing tool. The first generation being zinc finger nucleotide, second generation being talents, and this is the latest third generation gene editing tool, which is most used because of high sensitive, high specific nature of the CRISPR-Cas9 tool. Moving on to next slide, please. Yeah, as I explained, there are different modalities, different uh, types of CRISPR mechanisms based on the Cas enzymes, and Cas9 is most common used. Cas12 it is used for some diagnostic. Cas13 as well in diagnostics, and there are different other base editing only to change one base pair within the gene rather than changing a complete gene or changing a fragment of the DNA sequence. Next slide, please. Market for CRISPR-Cas technology. When I say market, uh, it's because we don't have marketed products as of now for CRISPR technology. We have only one product with respect to CRISPR therapeutics. And here we define market as any revenues generated through licensing agreements or through research and development partnerships or even through venture funding or IPO funding. So because the market is not yet mature, there are no commercialized products, and only one product is marketed, have marketed approval, but that product also has not penetrated or commercialized fully in the market. So here we define market as uh, licensing agreements or revenue generated through licensing agreements or funding, investor funding rounds. So as of 2023, 2024, the overall market is expected around 4 to 5 billion, the total CRISPR market. And when we segment the CRISPR market in terms of end applications, we can clearly segment into CRISPR technology used in human therapeutics or drugs. Second, CRISPR technology used in human diagnostics. And third, CRISPR technology used in agricultural productivity. And among these three, the market for therapeutics is around 3 billion in 2023, 2024. And the market for diagnostics is less than a billion, and even market for agricultural productivity is still less than a billion. Because more investor funding, more licensing agreements are being happening with respect to therapeutics, and also there is one marketed drug or one drug has the marketed approval in the market for therapeutics, and hence the market is being more invested on. The companies are generating around close to 1 billion cumulative invested investments with respect to therapeutics, whereas diagnostics and agricultural productivity, the market has not penetrated, or there are not much investments compared to therapeutics as of now. And when we see the growth with respect to 2030, the market is expected to reach for therapeutics more than 10 billion, and for diagnostics around 3 to 4 billion, and even for agriculture around 4 billion. There could be a major spike in agricultural applications if there is a commercialization of any food crop or row crop, but that is still not yet happening at this stage, and hence the market is low compared to therapeutics and in similar line to diagnostics. Next slide, please. Let's understand key drivers of CRISPR market. One definitely is increasing prevalence of genetic diseases as there is more awareness and more diagnosis and availability of more molecular diagnostic techniques. High number of cases of rare genetic disorders are being screened, and more prevalence of genetic diseases. It was estimated that 1 in 25 children are affected by genetic condition. So, with increasing prevalence of genetic disorders coupled with rising demand for gene therapies, more and more number of gene therapies and biological therapy being approved by regulatory authorities across US, Europe. So, increasing prevalence and coupled with increasing penetration or high rising demand for gene therapy are key drivers for this CRISPR market. Next. Also, rising demand for precision medicine. Instead of using a common drug, precision medicine such as CRISPR, which help in elevating the disease condition for one specific person based on his genetic condition or his genetic mutation. That is a key driver for CRISPR market, and also supportive regulatory landscape, as one therapeutic drug from a company called Casgevy has already been uh, uh, or for a drug called Casgevy has already been approved for sickle cell disease. And there is a clear regulatory motivation for other CRISPR therapeutic based companies to gain regulatory approvals in near future. I'm moving on to drivers for CRISPR in agriculture and diagnostics. So in agriculture as well, uh, companies are partnering and companies are developing or using CRISPR technology to uh, to improve agricultural productivity, to develop many disease-resistant crops or other nutrient crops. Of course, as of now, in agricultural productivity, companies are more focusing on uh, smaller pilot studies and on smaller crops, tomato and other master. Still, companies are doing research to apply the CRISPR technology on row crops or large scale mechanized to apply on a mechanized basis on large scale crops. However, definitely many companies, big companies are using CRISPR technology, are partnering with CRISPR technology-based companies to apply this technology into to increase the agricultural productivity. And in diagnostics as well, in diagnostics already there are marketed products using CRISPR technology to detect COVID or respiratory diseases, HIV, and other diseases. And because of COVID, a few companies such as Sherlock and Bamo Sciences have got emergency use, faster regulatory diagnostic approvals, and now uh, such products are already in the market and are being used for testing various diseases. So there is high penetration of CRISPR-Cas technology in diagnostics because the technology is very specific, highly sensitive, easy to use, less turnaround time, and hence these key parameters help in rapid penetration of CRISPR-Cas within a diagnostic space. Of course, big drivers there are market restraints. One is high cost of CRISPR-based therapies because of the complexity, because of the cost involved in development of CRISPR-Cas. For example, the marketed drug Cascavin is cost around 2.2 million per patient, and such high cost drugs where there will be issues with the reimbursement and accessible the affordability of such high priced or such high cost drugs is in low income or low income countries. So that is one of the restraints. Second, ethical and regulatory considerations because CRISPR-Cas technology is itself modifying the genes, modifying the genome, inserting a new DNA sequence within the genome that is specific inside the human body. So in some cases, using human embryos to develop or to insert the gene. So these are ethical and regulatory considerations which acts as a hindrance to adoption of this technology. And last, potential off-target effects because of the complexity of the genome. Uh, Even though companies are researching a lot to develop highly specific guide RNA, because the most important component within the CRISPR-Cas is guide RNA, which guides Cas9 to specific location within the genome. Even though the companies develop and many advanced techniques or AI-based computational techniques are available to design guide RNA, still the genome is very complex and there are many off-target effects where guide RNA or plasmid can bind to some other location in the genome and cause some mutations within the genome which we do not know until and unless it is infested or it is infested into the human. So there are definitely potential off-target effects and safety concerns which are hindering the adoption of this technology. So what are the business challenges for companies developing CRISPR-Cas products? One definitely long because of the complex nature of these uh, developing the Cas9, developing the CRISPR components and targeting the specific loci in the genome, screening the genome to find any off targets, and finally, so it's a long process. It takes around 7 to 10 years to commercialize a CRISPR-Cas product. Second, small addressable market. As of now, CRISPR-Cas is most used for genetic diseases or rare genetic disorder, and the market or total addressable market for such genetic disorders is low compared to other normal drugs such as metabolic, cardiovascular, or even oncology. The drugs for these CRISPR-Cas, or the indications for which CRISPR-Cas is being developed now or being used now, only targets a smaller portion of population, which generally limits the revenue. Of course, companies are strategizing by increasing the price, such as more than 2 million per patient, but still. Uh, uh, the companies are facing revenue it limits revenue. The reimbursement is not easy and not available across all countries, and hence smaller addressable markets is one of the challenge. Second, high licensing IP cost. License for CRISPR-Cas technology is with few researchers, few companies, and all other companies are paying royalties or paying licensing fees to use the technology for developing their therapeutics or diagnostics. And hence, high licensing fees also helps erode profit margins and regulatory barriers. Definitely, there are no clear regulations on CRISPR-Cas uh, based therapeutics or diagnostics or even animal products across different countries. There is no harmonization. Of course, US has approved, Europe has also approved one therapeutic, but other countries do not have a clear regulatory pathway for approval of CRISPR-Cas technology, and hence regulatory harmonization is also one of the challenge for this technology. Fourth, market readiness and adoption, as mentioned, because of the restraints such as ethical concerns, complexity, and high cost, reimbursement issues, or lack of trust, lack of infrastructure, because CRISPR-Cas technology is hospital-based therapies, high-end hospital-based therapies. So these are also factors for low adoption. And finally, competition. Of course, there is no competition, or there is no risk of obsolescence as of now because there is no competition and the technology is not matured, it's still evolving. But competition, once the therapies are approved, is also a business challenge among these CRISPR-Cas companies. So, as until now, we discussed what is CRISPR-Cas, how big is the market, and then try to understand what are the key market drivers and restraints and business challenges. Now, we will try to deep dive into three major branches or three major end applications where this CRISPR-Cas is used. One is therapeutic, second is diagnostics, and third is agricultural applications. And now we will deep dive into therapeutic CRISPR-Cas applications. So this slide gives a overview of the companies who are developing CRISPR, developing drugs or using CRISPR-Cas technology. The major companies include CRISPR Therapeutics, Editas, Intellia Therapeutics, Beam Therapeutics, Sciences, and few other companies. Among these, only CRISPR Therapeutics has a marketed drug, which is already got marketed approval in US and Europe. Of course, not fully commercialized, but in 2024 has marketed approval for CRISPR Therapeutics. And all these companies are working in different clinical indications, use different CRISPR modalities, partner with different types of companies, and have different competitive position. For example, CRISPR Therapeutics is focusing more on hematology, blood disorders, and it is using Cas9 as a modality ex vivo. There are two major uh, technologies within CRISPR. One is ex vivo, where the cells such as hematopoietic stem cells are taken out of the human body, and in the lab, those cells are infected with CRISPR-Cas9 to insert a deletion or target gene, and then those cells are again reinvested or again put back into the patient's body. That is ex vivo. The other technology is in vivo, where the CRISPR-Cas uh, complex is directly injected into humans at a specific site, such as in retina for ocular gene therapies or liver for liver malignancies. So companies use two approaches, ex vivo or in vivo. This CRISPR Therapeutics company is using ex vivo technology using CRISPR-Cas9 modality, and it is the first company to market CRISPR therapy, has strong pipeline of CRISPR-based drugs. It is developing several CRISPR-based drugs for different clinical indication. Editas Medicine, it is focusing primarily on ocular gene therapies, and this company is focusing on in vivo gene editing, and it is using Cas9 and Cas12a, and it is partnering with now AbbVie and Juno Therapeutics. Whereas Intellia Therapeutics is a leader in vivo gene editing and focusing on genetic disorders and rare disorders. The other company, for example, Caribou Biosciences, it is focusing on oncology clinical indications. It is using a different CRISPR modality. And so basically, the summary is the companies involved in these CRISPR therapeutics are focusing on different clinical indications based on their primary focus area, using different CRISPR modality, ex vivo or in vivo or Cas9, Cas12a, and partnering with various companies. The partnering is mainly because of sharing technological expertise, and is also a strategy to de-risk pipelines if those drugs are not very successful in the later stages of clinical development. So, yeah, this is the overview of the major companies involved, and all these companies generate revenues through product sales or licensing. Sorry, not product sales. Only CRISPR Therapeutics is through product sales. Of course, but other companies might have or will have potential sales in the future. But as of now, the revenue model is completely through licensing and the B2B research development revenue. So all the companies, because the companies do not have product sales, they are uh, reaping in investment. So investors are investing in all these CRISPR-based companies, series of funding, Series A, Series B, and several companies have went to public and raised funds through IPO as well, such as Intelia, Editas, went to public and raised funding through IPO. So all cumulative, so each funding round they are generating around 50 to 100 million, and cumulatively CRISPR Therapeutics, Editas Medicine have already generated more than 1 billion of revenue. And several investors such as Artis Ventures, New Leaf Venture Partners, and others are investing in these companies. So next we will try to understand what are the disease areas or clinical indications where these companies are focusing on. So the major companies, CRISPR Therapeutics, Beam, Editas, all focusing on blood disorders, sickle cell disease, beta thalassemia, sickle cell, on hematology-based diseases, and they are using different CRISPR modalities. And of course, the CRISPR Therapeutics drugs cascading has been approved, whereas for Beam and Editas, it is in phase 1 and phase 2. And companies like Editas Prime Medicine are developing CRISPR-based medicines for neurological and ocular diseases, and all are in preclinical or either nearly phase 1, phase 2. So companies such as Intelia, Beam, and Arbor are focusing on liver and metabolic disorder, and they are using in vivo or base editing uh, modalities, and all these drugs are in phase 1 and early preclinical stages. Some companies are even focusing on immunological disorders, uh, 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 but most of the companies are focusing on oncology or hematology based clinical indications. Yes, so we covered this that companies are mostly involved in oncology based indications or CRISPR therapeutics. So if you see CRISPR therapeutics has been involved in oncology, involved in hematology as well. And all these drugs are in phase 1 or early clinical phases. So until at least 2030, we do not expect any of these products to be commercialized. Next slide, please. Yes, so some of the companies are also working on developing CRISPR uh, modalities or CRISPR-based drugs for infectious diseases as well, and still they are in early phases. Uh, so mostly around 30 plus CRISPR therapies are in development as of now, focusing mostly on oncology, hematology, ocular or liver malignancies, and the most advanced which got approved are from CRISPR Therapeutics and partnering with Vertex on treating sickle cell disease, and commercialization is expected around 2030. Of course, as I mentioned, two types of CRISPR therapeutics ex vivo will take 5 to 7 years for approval, and already one drug is in market which is based on ex vivo, and in vivo therapies will take around 7 to 10 years to commercialize. Yes, so as Cascade is only one drug which is has marketed approval for CRISPR-Cas. So we thought it will be good to give a brief introduction on about these drugs. So this is the drug which helps for sickle cell disease therapy, and the CRISPR-Cas mechanism is used to edit a gene called BCL11A gene to reactivate the production of fetal hemoglobin, which is actually lost in sickle cell anemia patients, and got approval for different indications, SCTV and TDT 2023-2024. And key benefits are potentially curative one-time therapy, only one time patient episode or one-time infusion of this CRISPR-based drug within the patient. And it reduces disease burden, and clinically it has shown 85% improvement in the key parameters related to these disease burden or disease indications. So in next couple of slides, we want to analyze what are the financial uh, health or financial position of these CRISPR-based companies. So if we observe, this is one major company working on the CRISPR-Cas based drugs, Editas Medicine. From 2020 to 2024, of course, revenues are increasing, uh, marginally increasing, I think from 40 to 60 million per year, on an average around 50 million per year. But linearly, operating expenses are also increasing in linear proportion to their revenues. And net losses are also increasing because the company has investment rounds, the company has cash equivalents. But here the point we wanted to explain is that the revenues are low, around 50 million per year. This is mainly revenues generated by B2B research or licensing or royalty milestones, and not any product commercialization revenues. But because there are operating expenses are high, the company is into losses. And can you move on to next slide? Similar with the Beam Therapeutics, one more major company, the revenues increased from 15 to 30 million from 2020 to 2024. The operating expenses increased from 200 to 350 million, and losses also increased significantly because the company do have cash equivalents, but the company is into losses from 2020, and losses have been increased. Move on to next slide, please. Same with Intellia Therapeutics, on average 50 million in 2024. Operating expenses more than 400 million, losses near to 400 million. Yeah, CRISPR Therapeutics, one of the major company in CRISPR-Cas technology. Revenue is still less than 50 million in 2024. Operating expenses 500 million, which is in the losses. Move on to next slide, please. You can skip the next slide here. You can skip the next slide. Yes, what are the key takeaways for understanding or analyzing the revenue details of all the major CRISPR-Cas therapeutic companies? What are the key takeaways? One, widespread operating losses. Second, high and increasing operating expenses, and minimal and volatile revenue. Next slide. Strong cash reserves in several cases because the companies are generating around cumulative 1 billion through different investor rounds and IPOs. So there is cash reserves, but one-time profitability events are also there because of some milestones based on the development of the clinical drug. And funding will be very critical for all these newly biotech or new technology-based companies. So clearly, the financial data reflect the nature of these emerging biotech sector or CRISPR mechanism, high upfront cost, long development timelines, and uncertain revenue models until the products are commercialized. This is the early stage. These are the major revenue or industrial characteristics. At tough times for CRISPR startups, there are several examples. We just put one example that spin-off from a university which wanted to enter into CRISPR therapeutics, started with in vivo gene editing without any viral or mechanism, got some joint venture funding, but it was shut down due to poor preclinical results. And also, if we observe the major CRISPR-Cas companies, Editas or CRISPR Therapeutics, all the companies have reduced their workforce, reduced their size of the business uh, because of the complexities, because of the delay in the commercialization of the product. Next. So this is again a reiteration of the summary what we observed. Market realities outpace scientific advances. Pricing and accessibility is a major barrier, and investor caution. Funding tightening for early stage funding is not easy. Moving on. So this completes the therapeutic section. Of course, we delved a bit more into therapeutic section because that is the major chunk of the CRISPR-Cas market and where most of the CRISPR-Cas technology is being used. Uh, if anyone has any doubts before moving on to diagnostics or agricultural applications, of course, the other sections are a bit uh, uh, on a high level, but we can pause and take any questions if anyone has until now on therapeutic section.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, um, what do you foresee the profitability of these companies being? Um, do you see a clear path for them to reach profitability? And is the fact that they have low revenues at the moment because many of their services are not yet commercialized? Or do you think that it is a significant problem that they are not able to reach break even?
Because the products are not yet commercialized, all companies are working to develop a drug and launch the drug in the market. And because the products are not yet commercialized and taking more time, and the revenue model as of now is all based on revenues generated through any licensing agreement or milestones achieved with respect to product development. For example, if they have partnered with a company and the product has moved from phase one to phase two, then the company will get milestone royalties from the partner companies because the drug has moved to the next phase of development. So such royalty milestones or any licensing fees, licensing agreement or research agreement, these are all the revenues model of the current CRISPR-based companies because the products are not commercialized yet. But if a product is commercialized and if it is penetrated, then definitely companies will reap high profits because the cost of the drug will be exceptionally high, more than the biologic therapies. So the companies expect that they will break even once the product is commercialized. But until the product is commercialized, they may get uh, uh, volatile income based on the milestones or based on some licensing agreements.
So when they're commercialized, the price will be very high.
Yes, a minimum on an average, one CRISPR-Cas product as of now, which is approved, has a price of 2.2 million per patient per one dose. So definitely, with such a high price, companies can reap all their profits and they can minimize their losses. They can nullify all their losses, operating losses.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we move on to next section of diagnostics? Yes, so the major companies in diagnostics such as Mammoth Biosciences, Sherlock Biosciences, or even Tata Medical in collaboration with CSIR and other companies. So they are using different types of CRISPR modalities. As I explained, Cas9 is most used for therapeutics, whereas Cas12, Cas13, Cas14 are most used for diagnostics applications. And all the companies have definitely partnerships to develop various diagnostic products. And most of these companies are developing molecular-based diagnostic products for COVID-19, for other viral detection or bacterial detection. And the main key advantage of CRISPR-based diagnostics is of high sensitive and specific nature of diagnostics, less turnaround time, and even notably less price, less cost compared to high-end gene sequencing or other because these technologies are not using PCR or real-time PCR, but are using mostly isothermal and lateral flow technology. So cost is okay, cost is manageable, and more the revenue model of most of these companies. One is product sales, and second is again licensing agreements and product developments. Mammoth is partnered with Bayer GSK to develop various diagnostic technologies, and these companies are partnering with pharma companies also to develop companion diagnostics. So that is also a revenue model for these CRISPR-based diagnostics. Moving on, please. Next slide, please. So yeah, these companies as well have series of funding rounds from various philanthropies, various venture capitalists, and each company has generated around 100 million in comparison to therapeutic companies, where each company has generated around 1 billion of cumulative investment. These diagnostic companies have generated around 100 to 200 million of cumulative investments across the years. Next slide, please. So, what are the strategies, business strategies or revenue models employed by these CRISPR diagnostic companies? So, one is revenues through test kit sales. Companies like Sharma Mammoth has already marketed molecular test kits for COVID-19 flu, and licensing in OEM deals, as I explained, it's companion diagnostics, partnering with pharma companies. It's platform as a service. Some firms license entire CRISPR diagnostic platform for third-party assay development and point of care focus. Now, the strategy of CRISPR companies is to decentralize their diagnostic platforms to develop the kits that patients can use at home. So, at home CRISPR-Cas based kits is a new strategy employed by these CRISPR diagnostic companies. Next slide, please. So yeah, some of the points I explained that major funding rounds, most of these diagnostic companies have received funding rounds from various strategic pharma investors, and the timelines for development is 1 to 3 years in comparison with therapeutics, where you have 5 to 7 years for ex vivo and 7 to 10 years for in vivo diagnostics. CRISPR-based kits are developed in 1 to 3 years, and because of COVID-19, all these kits has faster approvals and they are developed within a year. Next product pipeline, many of these companies are focusing on oncology, antimicrobial resistance, or non-invasive prenatal testing. Next slide. Regulations, yes, emergency use are granted for COVID-19 kits, and high interest in CRISPR-based tests for malaria, TB, dengue, and the kits are also being developed in other countries apart from US, Europe, where generally therapeutics are most developed or concentrated in US, Europe. The diagnostic companies in India or companies in other APAC regions, China, are also developing or have marketed based diagnostic kits. Yes, so moving on to agriculture, how CRISPR-Cas is being used by different companies and what are the key end applications of this technology in agricultural products or the increase agricultural productivity. So this is the overview of key companies involved in using CRISPR-Cas agricultural productivity. For example, Pairway, but the major companies are Corteva, Syngenta, Bayer. These are three major companies who have clear crop development or agricultural seeds, agricultural products, and they are using this CRISPR-Cas technology. They are partnering with other startups or other license companies to use the technology to improve their crop traits, such as improving the yield or improving nitrogen deficiency or any other important trait. So the major companies are using technology to improve trades and finally to improve agricultural productivity. Whereas some companies like Pairways, Tropic Biosciences, Inari Agriculture, or the other companies are using this technology for uh, yeah, mainly to partner with other companies to develop other products or using for other small crop products like tomato or uh, like mustard seed, reducing the bitterness of mustard seed. So there are several companies in agricultural space are using this technology, though not much commercial success, but there are definitely few marketed CRISPR-based agricultural products in the market in Japan, in US, but commercial success or the market is not high because the technology is not scaled into to use this technology for row crop like corn, wheat, rice. The technology is not used or not uh, used in uh, high areas, to use as a mechanized in high areas like row crops. So yeah, uh, all these companies are using Cas9, Cas9 because that is the major nuclease of major CRISPR modalities, and the revenue model of all these companies are licensing sales and some product sales. And the partnerships, as I mentioned, most of the companies are partnering with major crop production companies like Corteva, Bayer, Syngenta, such major companies. Moving on. Yes, so as I explained, the innovations in crop improvement, like Inari Agriculture, the company is designing custom design seeds which help for resilience and productivity in specific environments. Syngenta is using to boost yield and improve sustainability, and Corteva is incorporating beneficial traits in the crops. Yes, move on to the next slide, please. And these are other small companies who have advanced genomic tools which can use for the CRISPR-Cas technology, for integration of this CRISPR-Cas into other seeds or other plant species. Agriculture space, one Inari and Intergrain partnered with boosting cereal breeding. Pairways and Bayer have introduced CRISPR enhanced greens in US grocery stores. Syngenta partnered with CropWise AI to use artificial intelligence for designing CRISPR based products. And again, Corteva has partnered with Pairways for scaling gene edited technologies, and uh, Merck has partnered with Better Seeds to validate genome editing tools for agriculture. So these are all major partnerships, which highlights that major seed companies, crop protection companies, or partnering with smaller companies who have the technology to develop their crop products or their traits. So revenue models. So what are the major strategies and revenue models of these seed-based or crop-based companies? One, edited traits commercialized via premium seeds. Some companies are already commercializing their seeds as CRISPR-based premium seeds. Next, trade licensing startups are partnering with major companies like Corteva or Syngenta uh, to, to transfer their licensing technologies. And there are companies which provide service platforms to monetize CRISPR as an R&D services for trade development. Next, regulatory and market strategies. Here again, because of the regulatory complexity, for example, in US, uh, CRISPR-based crops are classified as non-genetically modified crops until and unless no foreign DNA is inserted. Suppose only CRISPR is used to break a DNA sequence and insert a deletion or mutation without inserting any new foreign DNA sequence, such crop or such seed is not considered as a GMO, which has an advantage of considering it as a natural seed or natural seeds, and which has higher acceptance among the farming community. Second, historically restricted, but there are reforms underway to exempt certain gene-edited crops in Europe. China also rapidly advancing approvals. 17 CRISPR-edited crops approved since 2023. So other regions are also approving, but there are no clear harmonized regulatory structure with respect to differentiating a crop, CRISPR-based crop as a GMO crop or non-GMO crop. So such regulatory strategies are there, but companies uh, are using these regulatory strategies, and based on this, they are adopting different CRISPR-based modalities. Next slide, please. So major uh, funding, definitely, as I mentioned, the agricultural companies are also having VC funds or getting funding from investors, of course, around 150 to 200 million or 500 million. And mainly strategic alliances, Corteva, Bayer, Syngenta partner with startups to develop scale or develop or scale products. Timeline is 5 to 7 years for simple crops. And livestock, though we have not discussed 10 years for any livestock, if there are any CRISPR-based uh, disease-resistant livestock, for example, there is already a PRSS-resistant pigs which are developed for resistance to the specific bacteria. And so that takes around 10 years to develop such breed. Next, early revenue companies are generating early sales through field trials or licensing, and go to market is initial specialty products followed by row crop scaling and global expansion. So now we discussed therapeutics, we discussed diagnostics, and we discussed agricultural based companies. There are other set of companies who are taking advantage and who are getting revenues by providing consumables that all these therapeutics, diagnostic, and agricultural based companies use those consumables to develop CRISPR based products. So in order to implement the CRISPR technology, any researcher will need consumables such as Cas9, such as Cas9 protein or guide RNA, CRISPR-based reagents, antibodies, even some kits to screen off targets. So all there are several set major 10 to 15 major companies such as Thermo Fisher, Merck, Agilent, GeneScript. All these companies are developing kits for CRISPR-Cas, which most of these end users, agricultural, diagnostic, and therapeutics, are using on a daily basis. And these companies, consumer companies, are generating revenues, and they are in profits in providing such consumable kits. Next slide, please. You can skip this slide. So yeah, we already discussed this partnership, like major partnerships happening in 2024, 2023, that are partnered uh, to create high yield crops. Illumina is a major sequencing company. It has partnered it has acquired Fain Biosciences to develop CRISPR-based sequencing kit. Regeneron has partnered with other Intel Therapeutics to develop in vivo CRISPR-based gene editing platforms. Next slide. Yeah, Bayer partnered with Mammoth to develop diagnostic technology, and Sigma partnered with Better Seeds for improved plant varieties. So yeah, in the interest of time, I think we can go to, we have already described this. We can go to the next slide, the last slide, which I need time to explain. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is the overall summary, market summary of CRISPR-Cas market across therapeutic, diagnostic, and agricultural. What are the different aspects? So if you consider revenue models for CRISPR therapeutics, the revenue model is high cost drug sales. For example, Cascade already around 2.2 million per patient. And revenue models are licensing deals with pharma or royalties from partner platforms. Whereas revenue models for diagnostics is test kit or device kit sales or partnerships with other OEM companies or licensing with pharma companies to develop companion diagnostics. Whereas for agriculture, revenue models are seed sales. Already some companies have marketed seeds based on CRISPR technology, or licensing like Pairways with Corteva, or subscription-based research platforms. Moving on to go-to-market model. The go-to-market model for therapeutics is hospital clinical administration of those drugs and reimbursement via insurances, Medicare or orphan rare programs. For diagnostics, go-to-market model is point of care or lab-based diagnostics or B2B licensing to IVD makers. And for agricultural, go-to-market strategy will be seed distributors or B2B to seed distributors, straight licensor, or directly consumer facing, like directly selling the CRISPR-based products in the grocery stores or consumer facing. Regulatory strategies for therapeutics is US FDA via IND pathway or biological license application. For Europe, it is EMA approval for orphan drugs, or rare disease foster approval programs are there. For diagnostics, it is emergency use authorization in US and CE marking across the Europe. Whereas for agriculture, it is a bit different, non-GMO or GMO status, and it is dealt with USDA. Regional focus, most of the therapeutics are focusing on US, Europe, UK, and China emerging for clinical platforms. For diagnostics, of course, there are diagnostic kits approved in Asia, APAC region as well. And for agriculture, US, Brazil, Canada are early commercialization. Asia, of course, there are specific crops where companies are focusing in Asia, like rice, banana, soybean, and Europe opening slowly. Next slide, please. Funding landscape, therapeutics is mostly to venture funding, 1 billion cumulative funding the major companies have raised. Diagnostics also raised funding around 100 billion on average, and agriculture have also raised joint venture or venture funding around 150 to 500 million. Partnerships, all the companies across therapeutic agriculture have partnership and are developing drugs only or developing products only through partnerships. One may be because of technology, license transfer, or wanted to de-risk the failures in the later stage of product development. Development timelines 5 to 7 years for ex vivo and 7 to 10 years for in vivo for therapeutics, where diagnostics 1 to 3 years, and for agriculture also simple traits 5 years, whereas row crops or livestock it takes 7 to 10 years. In commercial status, only one drug is approved as of now from CRISPR Therapeutics. Diagnostics, of course, we have a couple of approved diagnostic kits from different companies. And though agriculture, there are products launched, there are products are mostly focusing on low regulatory risk traits like shelf life appearance or fix or increasing the taste or of the seeds or of the crop rather than high impact productivity traits. Yes, so this is all we have regarding CRISPR, where we wanted to deep dive into each of the end applications. The conclusion is definitely it is a groundbreaking science, but the companies are facing big hurdles to commercialize their products, high cost, complex delivery, and other challenges mean that they definitely need fresh strategies to stay viable, to create value. Yes, so this is all we have regarding the CRISPR uh, therapeutics, and where we as a team are helping various biological and CRISPR-Cas companies mainly in the advisory and strategies regarding helping in licensing agreements or understanding how big is the market, understanding the regulatory landscape, or deep diving into pipeline analysis for a specific therapeutic area, or specific diagnostic, or even for an agricultural specific trait. And this is our team. I am Ravikiran, and I lead the life sciences and healthcare market research in TBRC. And along with me, we have Aarti, lead consultant, and we have Frank, chief editor, and served as a president and vice president for various large R&D companies. And Oliver is our chief executive officer in the call now.
Okay, I think Ravi sir, we can take some questions since we are on the end of our webinar.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I guess we don't have any questions, Ravi sir. I think we can conclude.
Good to know either people understood everything or don't understand anything.
Yes. Thank you, Ravi. So, what would be your overall expectation for the future of this market over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes, because there are a lot of companies which are doing partnerships with several CRISPR-Cas based technology companies or having licensing agreements to use the license to develop their products and traits. Definitely, there will be the companies are looking to commercialize the products based on CRISPR technology. Of course, there will be a lag or there will be a time gap where definitely 7 to 10 years to develop a therapeutic product or a agricultural product, and 3 to 4 years for a diagnostic product. Uh, so it resembles a model for a emerging technology, biotechnology, like high investment, low revenues, more operating losses, but once commercialized, have high profits. Um,
Do you think it might be a bit like AI that, there was a long period when it was kind of in development, money was being spent, there wasn't that much visibility on the outcome, and then suddenly a kind of takeoff.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, yeah, it is in the same phase compared to AI development, and the companies have not experienced the success as they expected. There are definitely startup companies who have exited from this technology. Even the major
Mm.
companies have reduced their workforce, reduced their size, and reduced their focus on the pipeline molecule, the number of molecules that they were developing. They have reduced it and mainly focusing on late phase molecules. So definitely not very high success as the companies thought, as they thought with respect to potential of the technology. Uh, yeah, because of many regulatory market accessibility issues. But yeah, companies are positive. Companies are still partnering to use this technology for their products.
Yeah, I guess AI doesn't face as many regulatory hurdles as this
Mhm.
market.
Any more questions? Okay. So a very big thank you, Ravi sir, for this informative and engaging session. And thank you everybody for joining the CRISPR-Cas webinar. And we will be having more exciting healthcare topics coming up soon. So to stay updated and receive invitations, please drop your email IDs in the chat box.
Thank
Thank you. Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you all.
everybody.